So first off, let's just go over what we'll be talking about. So first order of business is we have a new executive director, Mary Sell. Super excited. She's going to be talking a little bit about herself and what she hopes to do with the organization. Then we'll have Raleigh Community Kickstand come and talk. They're our partner organization. They fix up bikes for people in need around the city. Um, and we'll hear about what they've been up to this year. Paul Black from the city of Raleigh is here to talk about what the city's been up to, what they've achieved, and what their plans for the future are. Then we'll go for what Oaks and Stokes has done in this crazy year. Then we'll hear from the board candidates, go over how you can vote, and then we'll have a Q&A at the end. So first off, I want to hand it off to Cody, who's been instrumental in this process of hiring an executive director that has pretty much taken all year. So take it away, Cody.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, it's 2020. The board had voted to prioritize hiring an executive director, and it wasn't an easy process. We spent the pretty much the entire year figuring out what we needed in order to hire a staff person in a way that was sustainable and would accurately and consistently serve our community and our members. So we worked with a lot of different people, former board members, former presidents. We worked with members of our community to build all the structures and the documentation and the processes that we need to put in place to ensure that we're successful with our staff at this point and through the future. And we're super excited when we were able to extend this offer to Mary, and it was a huge milestone that honestly, with 2020 and COVID and everything just kind of crashing against the wall, I personally wasn't sure if we were going to get across the finish line before the end of the year, but we did, and I couldn't have been more proud of everybody here who helped us get to this point. And I couldn't be more excited that we have Mary Sell as our first staff person to the organization and our executive director to help us grow our community and our organization and shoot us to the next level. So with that, Mary, if you want to take it away.
Sure. Thanks for the introduction, Cody. And yeah, a ton of gratitude to this board and to everybody with Oaks and Spokes. I've been involved at a super volunteer periphery level for a while, kind of always putting things in, trying to collaborate and trying to help in any capacity that's useful. And I am super, super, super excited to help staff things up and hopefully accelerate goals for, people-oriented mobility here in Raleigh. There's so much work that has been done with an all-volunteer board. I think it's amazing. I mean, you're looking at a little picture here of course, this was in collaboration with the amazing people at the city, Paul and his team. But this is our first, separated piece of infrastructure. It's going to be an iterative process for anybody who's ridden it and, had to move the trash cans, etc. But this is a really big deal for our community to have, an emphasis, certainly personally of mine, and one that I think that the board also is interested in is all ages and abilities infrastructure and making sure, I have a 5-year-old and an almost 3-year-old, and I have to think about ways, that they would feel safe being either with me on my bike or riding by themselves, hopefully one day. So I have 4 or 5 slides here. I technically started this position last week, but have been, very excited to get moving here. And I don't know if there's time to take questions at the end. Maybe are we going to have a mixer or we all talk at the end? I don't know. But if people want to ask any questions, you can also DM me in the chat box too. All right. So wanted to provide some brief history here. So a lot of people, I've only been in Raleigh 5 years, right? So it's been really helpful for me in the last year or two to, everybody can see my screen, right? Just give me a thumbs up. Okay, nobody said anything yet. To be connecting with Christy Jackson, who is the founding lady behind Oaks and Spokes. And, she has been really instrumental to me in this journey and kind of a phone a friend, if you will, to talk me through this process, as I had let her know that I'd really like to help staff up an advocacy organization here in Raleigh, and wanted to make sure that anything that's done in the future is really true to the roots of the organization and all the people who have put so many, countless hours into volunteer capacity for this organization to date. I will be one person to start out, technically working 20 hours a week. So I will be, the volunteer capacity and the community will be so critical to the success of this organization. I look forward to, in the next year or two, and et cetera, to building capacity for the organization and adding staff up. But volunteers, we love you and we still need you. That's also my final slide. But yeah, it was founded in 2012. So we've been here almost a decade, and we are a membership funded and driven organization. So members are so critical to our success. So a tiny bit about me. As I mentioned, I have been living in Raleigh here for about 5 years. I have had the honor of serving on the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Commission, which is a group of folks that are appointed by council to help provide guidance on bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure and improvements in our city. And I think a lot of really good work has been done there. One thing I did learn on that time serving, I'm still technically, I think, next month, maybe my final month, because I've asked to have them appoint somebody else since I'm staffing up this organization now, is that things can sometimes, from a municipal level, move slower, I think, than people who ride bikes every day would like it to, right? We're looking to accelerate, advocacy and provide tactical solutions to the city when they can't. What this staff do is incredible with like the 2.5 people that they have. So we're just here to help amplify and accelerate goals that the city has, and to be a partner on all of that. So I hope, just similar to what we did with the Harrington Street pop-up, I would like to be able to demonstrate and do those same things time and time again in different communities throughout our city, to show them, what that quick build can feel like and what a separated facility can be like, and to get real-time feedback from the community on what works and what doesn't work. So want to keep popping up all over Raleigh, right? That's definitely a goal for this year and beyond. So hopefully COVID can wrap up quickly here so we can get on to doing those fun things and seeing each other again. And why I'm here is I really want a more equitable and sustainable transportation system for our community. I feel, I think anybody who's involved with Oak & Spokes right now are people who ride their bikes probably pretty much on a daily basis. And y'all know, just like me, oh, we got things, we got to work on right now. And I think, my background is in environmental policy and planning. So climate is really how I came to these things. But very quickly, you realize how intertwined equity is with all of this. So I just want, I so much want a future where our transportation system is just so much better than it is today. And we know that right now, it's not safe for people who bike and walk, and it's not comfortable, and it's certainly not sustainable, because almost everybody feels that for the majority of their trips, they have to take a personal vehicle to get around. So we want to change that. And obviously these will be incremental changes on a local level, but I'm really excited about that. Local, the localness of all this. It's going to be super fun to work with the community on advancing these goals. So some of the 3 kind of pillars of where we're looking to focus this work over the next year, obviously in concert with the board, the new board that will be coming on board, we'll be providing consultation for all of this and feedback. But I would love to continue with the outreach that we've already done, making sure that we're reaching out to all different types of demographics here in Raleigh, young, old, all ages and abilities, doing more pop-up events like I just mentioned. I think that's a great opportunity to get out in the community and offer tactical solutions and get people excited about investments that sometimes on paper can take 10 or 15 years to get that curb and gutter approach, where you have the Indianapolis Cultural Trail coming through Raleigh. I view something like the Harrington and West Street as a first step on that journey. So if we can, well, I guess the 1.0 is the cones, right? Where, as you're seeing in the events here, and then the 2.0 is the bollards that we have right now. So I am here to help build those partnerships, start those conversations, and, you know, get our community moving. And of course, equity is key to everything that we do. And to date, you know, Oaks and Spokes has been, it has not been as diverse as it needs to be, both in our board membership and in our larger, broader membership. So we want to be really, really intentional about building those relationships in our community. This right here is a picture of Brandon Parrish, who's one of the team leaders over at St. Augustine's, which is a super, super cool group of folks that unfortunately got started here right before COVID, but they're the first HBCU racing team in the state of North Carolina, and they're right here in Raleigh. So it's super exciting to think about partnerships that we can do with them over the next year, and when we're in person, and growing that and getting students excited about participating on that team and just supporting them in any way that's useful. So that's just one small, you know, component of equity, obviously, but one we're super excited about and just can't wait to plug into once COVID wraps up, and even before. So as I said, you know, previously, I'm so excited to apply for grants and build staff capacity, because I think that's really critical to help achieve some of the big, you know, goals that we want to accomplish with this organization. But we need you too, you know, if you're watching this right now, or if it's a recording that you watch later, you know, volunteer capacity is so critical, especially when we think about things like those pop-ups. So please think about ways that you can offer, you know, your own time and resources toward Oaks and Spokes, because we would be so excited to collaborate with members of the community to help advance some of our goals and mission. And right here is just some contact information, and you can find that on the website too, but I'm super available. You know, text me if you want, email me, whatever, just get a hold of me, and I'm super excited to work with Oaks and Spokes, and can't wait to see what we can do in the next year.
Thanks, Mary.
Yeah.
Really appreciate you coming on board. I'm excited to see how you can take our organization to the next level. So coming up next is John from Raleigh Community Kickstand. They do great work helping people in need get access to reliable transportation through fixing up donated bikes, helping people fix bikes that are in need of repair. So John, take it away.
Thank you, Jonathan, and thank you, Mary. Welcome aboard, Mary. It's good to have you as part of the organization. To share my screen. Here we go. So I'm John Young. I'm with Raleigh Community Kickstand, and I need to present. And we're a group of volunteers. We're actually we were founded by, and we're not real good at running slideshows, so just bear with me. We are a group of volunteers. We fix bicycles for people in need. We were spun out of Oaks and Spokes. We were brought together. We were all members of Oaks and Spokes when we formed 3 years ago. Actually going on 4 years now. We provide free bicycle repairs to people at Oak City Cares. Oak City Cares is it's a facility that Wake County runs down on South Wilmington Street, and during the week it is a place to go if you need help finding shelter or health care or mental care or any kind of placement services. Oak City Cares is a place that consolidated all of, or is working to consolidate all of the services that Wake County provides to homeless and people experiencing hunger. That's done down on South Wilmington Street. We go there on Saturday, one Saturday a month right now, and we provide free bicycle repairs to anybody who shows up and needs it. A lot of the folks that get services at Oak City Cares depend on bicycles as their primary source of transportation. As Jonathan mentioned, we also receive a lot of donated bikes. We have a network of volunteers that fix them up, and we provide them to anyone in need. Let me figure out how to. So just an overview, we got together in April of 2017. And since inception, we've serviced 474 bikes. We've taken 306 donated bikes and fixed them up and placed them with people in need. And on average, it costs us about $4.25 to take a donated bike, fix it, and find a new home for it. Just some, we had a pretty good year, 2020, despite everything that was going on. We repaired 163 bikes. We actually placed 130 bicycles, which is last year we did 100 bicycles, so that's obviously more. So that was good. We only had 9 open repair events at Oak City Cares. We took a little hiatus there in the March, April, May timeframe. We did come back in June, and we implemented some new safety protocols to protect our volunteers and protect the cyclists that we support. We did establish placement partnerships with 10 charitable organizations in Raleigh. We've provided bicycle and U-locks to 22 residents of Wake County Men's Shelter. That's been a really great partnership for us. We maintain a list, we call it the wish list. Anybody who signs up on the wish list can get a bike. Many of the men who live in the shelter on South Wilmington Street would sign up on the list, but we never had a way to get in touch with them. The phone numbers they gave us typically were not in service by the time, a couple weeks later when we had a bicycle available to give to them. So now we are working with the staff at the shelter, and anytime they call us, people who get residency at the shelter, they enter a program with Wake County that helps them to work themselves off the street and get into housing and get their life, back in order. So anybody who's been a resident there over the last 6 months has been offered a bicycle, and we've been able to provide a bicycle and a U-lock to everyone that wanted one. And that's been a great partnership for us. 2020, we had 28 Adopt a Bike volunteers, and they repaired 95 bicycles for us. And I'll talk a little bit about that more later. And we've had a lot of great new volunteers this year. We had a lot of interest in the beginning of the year, and even though things changed a little bit as the year progressed, we still had a lot of new people come out and help us, or more so help us at their own home by taking bikes home with them to fix. So let's go see if this works. So Adopt a Bike, just an overview for folks that hadn't heard of it. We don't have a physical location. A lot of the bike co-ops around the country do have a facility where folks get together and work on bikes. We don't. We're just a network of volunteers who get together a couple of times a month to fix bikes and try to do good things. So we have a network of volunteers who we provide them with the bikes that are donated to us. We evaluate the bicycles. We come up with a list of needed repairs, and we give them the required parts to fix it. Our volunteers, they take the bikes home with them. They repair them on their own time. They use their own tools and their expertise. And it works out great for us. Some people, we have a couple of retired folks that they get 1 to 2 bikes a week and they just turn them over. And then we have some people that they don't have quite as much time and they just like to tinker when they can. And it might take them a month or 2 or more to get the bikes done, but it all works out for us because we have a constant trickle of bicycles coming back to us that have been repaired and are ready to be placed with the folks that need them. Our future plans, we still have over 100 people on the wish list. So, there's a constant need for bicycles. So we will continue to fulfill those needs. We're looking we've been going once a month. We go the second Saturday of every month to Oak City Cares. For the last about 2 years, it's been steady that. Our goal over the next couple of months is to increase that frequency so that we're there every other weekend. so that with the second event would be a scaled down event where we're just there providing basic services, basic maintenance to sustain the riders that we've already provided bikes to. And at our larger repairs, we really we probably go overboard. But we have truing stands, we have bucket tubs full of parts, and there really hasn't been anything we haven't been able to fix. And if occasionally there is something that we can't fix, we typically have a loaner bike available to make sure that if you rode in on a bicycle, that you're going to ride out on a bicycle that's safe. I'll talk a little bit about our partnerships that we've developed, but over the next year, we're looking to have bike repair clinics with these partner organizations. And these are organizations that have helped us place anywhere from 15, 20 to 30 bicycles. So we want to take our talents on the road, and when we help an organization place 30 bicycles, we want to make sure that the people that they serve is sustainable, that the bicycle is sustainable. So we'll provide repairs and teach them how to make repairs as well. We're always looking for more adopt a bike volunteers, and we're always looking for money. So we're applying for grants to seek new funding opportunities so that we can continue to provide lights and locks with the bikes that we place. We're looking to build out tool sets so that we can have more repair events and kind of place different tool sets with different members so that different people can run the events. And we long-term goal would be to get a bike repair station installed somewhere between Oak City Cares and the Wake County, the South Wilmington Street Men's Shelter, which there are two adjacent facilities. I think it'd be a good idea to have a repair stand they're available to the residents of the men's shelter. So some of the partners that we've hooked up with over the last year, Wake County, as I mentioned, the Wake County Men's Shelter on South Wilmington Street, Lutheran Services for refugees and immigrants, food pantry at NC State University, go Wolfpack. I'll talk a little bit about Epic Labor later. Alliance for Disability Advocates, they help people get back into a home and get a job and get back to living independently. And they offer any of their clients bicycles as a form of transportation. Catholic Charities, Southeast Raleigh Promise is one that we've just started working with, but we're in the process of placing about 20 bicycles with them. And they're one of the organizations that we'd like to support with clinics. Step Up Ministry is another great organization that we're working with. They place a lot of bicycles and offer ongoing services with them. We did place some bikes with the 4-H up in Vance County. The request came at the right time. They were looking for a number of bikes for teenagers, and we had a lot of smaller 24-inch bikes that were available, so we were able to help them out. Oak City Cares, of course, which is our host facility, we're a regular service provider there. And Healing Transitions, we're starting a partnership with them. They are located on the campus, on a corner of the campus of Dix Park. And that's a place for folks that go recovering from addiction. So we are trying to, they have their own bicycle shed. They have their own fleet of bicycles that the residents are able to use. And we are working with them to help them maintain those bicycles. Epic Labor is on the list. That was kind of a new one for us this year, but they are a temporary labor organization. Many of the folks that we provide bike services to at the men's shelter when their first job out of the shelter is typically with a temporary labor organization like Epic Labor. And so we approached Epic Labor to say, see if they would be willing to offer bicycles to the folks that work for them. So far, we've given them 8 bicycles, and they make them available to the folks that work for them. It's been a good partnership for us and for Epic Labor and for their employees who now have reliable transportation to get to and from work. So just we are very well supported by the cycling community in Raleigh and around Raleigh. Of course, Oaks and Spokes, they're our fiscal sponsor, and we were all members of Oaks and Spokes when we met around the table at Crank Arm 4 years ago, and came up with this organization. Durham Bike Co-op, they've got a great facility over there in Durham, and they've been a big help to us. They've from the get-go, they've been a source of parts and advice and for us. Same with Carborough Recyclery. City of Raleigh, we've interacted with them early on. They gave us lights, and they've supported some of our activities. Oak City Cycling Project is one of the local bike shops that's always there to help us out. Wake Raleigh Partnership to End Homelessness, they were an early sponsor of us. They are the governing organization. They were the governing organization that started Oak City Cares, and it has since become its own organization. And of course, Oak City Cares, Trek Bicycles, Holly Park, Peak Church and Apex, they have their own bicycle ministry, and they've always been willing to share bicycles with us. All Star Bikes has been great. TLC Bikes up in North Raleigh has been a help to us. Trophy Maywood, Linwood Brewing, We Like Beer, and both of those breweries have been kind enough to host us when we, back in the good old days when we had public repair events. Hopefully we'll get back to that in the not too distant future. But both Trophy and Linwood have hosted us. And Oak and Dagger did too, but they're no longer with us. I want to talk about 2 of our volunteers. One is Natalie. Natalie was with us from the get-go. She was one of the ones sitting around the table at Crank Arm 4 years ago when we were talking about what we could do as to help cycling in Raleigh, and she has been a quiet and steady force of good within Raleigh Community Kickstand, and for the last 2 years, she has been our donor coordinator. So if you've contacted us about donating a bicycle, you've worked with Natalie to coordinate that donation. Natalie is moving from Raleigh, and we wish her a lot of luck, and we will certainly miss her. And one more volunteer I'd like to talk about is the guy in the red shirt. Unfortunately, I didn't have a picture of him from the front, but it's appropriate that Kurt Earhart is pictured helping somebody fix their own bicycle. Kurt, I was going through the records to see about our Adopt-A-Bike, the number of Adopt-A-Bikes, and I realized that Kurt was the very first person in April of 2018 who responded when we issued the initial call for Adopt-A-Bike volunteers. Kurt was the first one to respond and has been steady at it. He's fixed over 34 bicycles for us, which is more than one a month. He is, in addition to Adopt-A-Bike, Kurt is at just about every repair event we have, and is, our motto is fix, teach, give, and he certainly lives by the exemplifies the teach part of that. He's always willing to teach the folks how to fix their own bicycles. and he's also handling some big projects for us as far as coordinating some partnerships with some other agencies. So thank you, Kurt. You are truly an Adopt a Bike all-star. And here's some stuff for us. That's my dog. So if you want to contact us, you can email us. We're also on Facebook and visit our website. And again, thank you to Oaks and Spokes. You guys are a great supporter of us, and we're happy to be a part of you. And we look forward to a long partnership with you guys. That's all I have.
Thank you, John. That working with Raleigh Community Kickstand is great. I recommend if anybody is at all interested in fixing bikes to go to one of their repair days or adopt a bike. It's laid back, relaxed. You can learn something and you can teach something and you can help somebody all in the same day. So it's fantastic. So coming up next is Paul Black from the city of Raleigh. He's here to talk about what the city's been up to and what they plan to do. And Paul works tirelessly to make Raleigh a better place for bikes while working with the city of Raleigh. So just big thanks and take it away.
All right. So did I make sure I unmuted myself? Looks like I'm okay. All right, I'm gonna just roll right in. Get ready, I'm gonna go fast because I told Jonathan I could do this in 10-ish minutes and there's a lot to go over. First, the big stuff. We got our first standalone bike projects in 5 years. By that, I mean they weren't part of a resurfacing or a bigger road project. They were just bike projects all by themselves. And they were mostly the separated bikeways that you see the pictures of, the downtown north-south Greenway connector on Harrington and West Streets. We got Crabtree Boulevard, a couple of blocks in downtown on Morgan Street going eastbound, and a large section of Lineberry. For those of you who don't know where that is, it's parallel to Tryon Road just south of Interstate 40 through a neighborhood with a lot of NC State students that connects up to Centennial campus just across the interstate. Annual resurfacing, these are opportunistic. We just, as they come up and they're in the bike plan and we think we have enough space between the curbs to only do paint, we go ahead and put them in. There's a couple of big wins on here. Thistledown Drive actually connects to that project on Lineberry and makes the network a little bit longer. We're looking at doing a neighborhood bikeway on Sierra Drive next year that would connect to a large capital project on Carolina Pines. We've also got another resurfacing this year, potentially on Rush Street, and that would leave us with one very small gap, basically between South Saunders and Hammond Road, to go all the way from Lake Johnson Park all the way over to the amphitheater. So we're looking at trying to complete a pretty long stretch here in the next 2 to 3 years. Industrial Drive's a big one. I got word today that Parks and Rec is negotiating to purchase the land that is the informal connection at the south end of that to the Crabtree Greenway. It looks like that is starting to move, and we can try to formalize that in the future. Not my project, but I am hearing things about it, so I think it's moving. So that makes industrial a pretty important connector to get up to some of the commercial areas from the Greenway. There's a bunch of capital projects with bike elements that got done this year. Phase 1 of Yonkers Road, which isn't all that big. Phase 2 will make it really long. It will parallel both the Greenway and Interstate 440 in the northeast part of town, inside the Beltline. Fox Road is up outside the Beltline. That's in an area that really does not have a lot of bike infrastructure and needs a lot of love. So I was very excited about that project. We're hoping to continue to do some more projects until we get enough pearls to connect the string of pearls and make a longer piece to that. New Hope Church was another one. Again, this one's up in North Raleigh. They're all starting to get critical mass, and we're going to be able to connect some of these pieces in the next 5 years, we hope. Traffic calming is another program. I don't run this one, but we had some success on a couple of streets. The State Street section is a little further north from the cycle track we're going to try to work on this summer. But again, overall, we're slowly starting to create a full fleshed out network. BrightShare has been a huge success. Even with COVID, even with the vendor that did the maintenance and repair switching just as we went into COVID, we had some hiccups with that. I don't know if folks noticed, we did get some complaints once we got to about May. I suspect they thought we were going to shut down like a number of other systems they manage, and we did not. And in fact, we saw the mileage go up. There were fewer trips, but the trips people were taking were longer trips. And we actually had more miles this year than we did last year. Granted, last year we didn't fully open until May, so the numbers might be a little skewed, but this program has been a huge success. Right now, our next goals are working with public-private partnerships to get more stations. And we started realizing that we're going to have to think about our bike fleet the same way that they think about buses. Right now, we were just so tickled to get them all out there and get them used that we had just been concentrating on that. And now that we've got the first phase done, we're really thinking about, okay, what does this look like long term? We had a sort of a big behind the scenes move to update the prioritize section of our bike rally plan. I'm going to try to make this simple because it's kind of wonky and complex, but we realized we had an issue, or at least I did at some point, when we were 5 years into this plan and we'd hardly implemented anything. We'd implemented bike lanes on Maywood, we'd implemented part of the North-South Greenway connector, and we'd implemented half of the bike lanes in Cameron Village. And when I looked at the other half of that Cameron Village, which is Woodburn, we can't fit them between the existing curb lines. It's going to take a redevelopment in Cameron Village to make that happen. And that's not going to happen with my little standalone paint-only program. So how do we take care of that? So we took a step back and said, where are those key links? We've started to get enough on the ground that we want to, again, sort of connect those pearls on the necklace. How do we make that happen with existing and pending projects? So there's just a little snapshot of Southwest Raleigh to kind of give you an idea of what we looked at. We really wanted to think about how they were funded. So if they were already funded, or they were a markings only project, that's something we can get done. It's going to happen in the next 5 years, most likely. We've got this midterm time frame, and this includes some projects that we thought we could get done and ran into physical barriers that are going to take planning and design and money to fix. But we can probably get them done, I don't know, say 10 years. And then we've got the rest of the plan, and that's really remained unchanged. That's where we spell out in the plan what we want it to be long-term, so that when a developer comes in, we can say, this is what the plan wants us to get as the development occurs. So looking at the 8 major separated projects, which I think is really important to a lot of the people that we talk to. We've got 3 projects that are moving forward. 2 of them on the top, South State Street and the downtown north-south connector, we're able to do as standalone projects. And Six Forks is a funded capital project from our bond. So those are moving ahead. We've got 2 additional projects. One is on hold, pending some work that Parks and Rec is doing for the Dix to Chavis connector, and to some degree, bus rapid transit, and where that's going to end up in downtown. And then Wilmington Street, which is probably going to be implemented with the bus rapid transit line down to Garner. Then there were 3 where we ran into physical or really significant political issues that we need to be able to work through, and those are the ones in red. So what we did was we said, we're going to pull those back, get some further study, figure out what we need to do to tee them up for funding or whatever needs to happen next. And we wanted to then look at how do we fix that. The biggest change to the priority was actually a lot of the neighborhood bikeways that we had prioritized. We backed away from and said, if it's not connecting those existing or pending pieces, we'll come back and get those as we're able to, but let's make sure we don't leave any gaps. We want to fill the gaps, even if it's an interim solution. So we looked at projects that would have to be capital, which are those 3 that were in red. They're going to take some additional study. The path forward from my perspective, particularly for Peace and Atlantic, is to do what we give them to the engineers, we get them to sort of a 5% design so we can do some kind of cost estimates. We then start shopping those cost estimates around to funding programs. Things like the locally administered projects program at the capital area MPO, to the STI program with NCDOT to try and get those funded. If there's another round of stimulus grants, like the ERA grants that happened 8 or 10 years ago, we'd want to have everything teed up and ready to go to be able to submit to those programs. We potentially also can use those to try and get in another bond if the city decides to do another transportation bond. We also wanted to backfill those with some projects that we think we can move ahead quickly, and those specifically are extending the north-south downtown Greenway connector all the way to Wade Avenue, where there's a brand new underpass under Wade. We are finding out from Parks and Rec that Devereaux Meadows has got some significant environmental issues they've got to deal with. There's some underground storage tanks and some leaks from the old dry cleaners that was on the other side of Peace. They're having to deal with some of that. So the Greenway is probably still a little ways out. And we're going to go ahead with an on-street parallel connection. So it'll go from Smoky Hollow all the way up to Wade Avenue and under Wade Avenue to the other side. We're looking at St. Albans. This probably won't be this summer because there's a lot of construction coming right now. And we don't want to spend money putting out Plexiposts just to have the dump trucks tear them up or have the construction have to tear them up if they need to dig to move utilities and water and sewer. But that's very doable. And as soon as the construction starts to wind down, we see that one is happening pretty quickly. And then Faircloth, the Gorman Street connector that will go from Sullivan and Ligon right there on NC State's main campus up to where the Greenway is now on the corner of Meredith there at Hillsborough. This would continue that all the way up to Ridge Road and Whole Foods. So there'd be an on-road parallel. Faircloth right now is conventional bike lanes, and I think parking is even allowed. It's one of the legacy bike lane projects. So we're looking to bump that up and make it into a separated facility and hopefully bring it online at the same time we bring Gorman Street online. One of the other things we really wanted to emphasize was we have a really big network of over 22 miles of side paths in the city. They're not well branded. A lot of them are really starting to show their age. And we think that this is a cheap way to really bolster our existing protected network very quickly. I don't know if folks know, Falls of the News has almost a 7-mile long side path from the Greenway going south almost to, I think it's Lafayette Plaza. I forget the names of the shopping centers. There are 1 or 2 small gaps. There's a couple of substandard sections, but it's a pretty nice facility. I know a lot of folks know the Western Boulevard has got a relatively long section, but again, some of them are just showing their age. They wouldn't meet today's design standards. So we already have the design in the hands of one of our contractors to look at all of the markings, particularly at crossings and driveways, and figure out what we need to do to bring those up to standard. And then are there any that are really substandard in terms of their use that would need something bigger as a phase 2? And one that comes to mind there is Avent Ferry. We know that with the Avent Ferry corridor plan, there's some additional things coming. So maybe that's not the best example, but in terms of use, if you've ever been on a bicycle going down the hill from campus, when one of the Wolf Line buses stops and lets everybody out, there's a little bit of conflict, user conflict on that. So we'd be looking for places like that that we could improve. So what do the new maps look like? We switched the groupings up. Again, that's kind of wonky, but we wanted to do a map that showed where the bikes are still mixing with traffic. So these are conventional bike lanes and neighborhood bikeways. The map there shows the blue is conventional bike lanes and the purple would be neighborhood bikeways. And these are the ones we're going to prioritize that will bolster other connections. The orange are the separated facilities. A lot of that are the side path rehabs in terms of mileage that you see on there. And then there's the projects that we talked about like Faircloth and the West, I call it West Street North, which is maybe a little confusing because North Street is also there. But that means really from Peace to Wade. And then the greenways are still the greenways. We did add a project. I don't know if you can see my cursor, but it's right off of Capitol Boulevard. That is the rerouting of the greenway around that failed structure 106. That is moving forward and has been funded. And then capital projects. This is one place where the existing bike plan just assumed that they were going to happen and they don't show up. So that when we open a really big marquee facility like the bike lanes on Buck Jones Road, we're not able to take credit for that as achieving goals in the plan. So we put all of these back in there so that we could get credit. It also helps us plan a little better. So a quick aside, I want to talk about neighborhood bikeways. I know some folks had come out to do the Crosstown Bikeway ride, and we've done some initial outreach for that. We're actually taking a step back and looking at what is the treatment going to be citywide. And I think the question that I have that I ask myself is, it's got to be more than just signs, because we already did that. And we decommissioned those in 2006. A lot of them are still out there. I'm kind of hoping I can repurpose a lot of them. Maybe they've been out there so long they're retro cool now. If nothing else, though, if we know where the locations are, we can repurpose at least the posts that they're on. But what we'd like to do is something better. Something as simple as that little round circle with the custom letters. I've actually got to apply to Federal Highway for a special exception to the manual, the manual on uniform traffic control devices. I talked with my counterpart in Columbia, Missouri, who actually had experimental approval to do something like this, but ran out of money and never implemented it. I've already been talking with our Federal Highway representatives here in Raleigh to find out who I need to talk to in Washington, and I'm in the process of getting an application together to ask for what Columbia was granted for experimental approval to see if we can do this. The key here is we ideally would like to make the signs be, or the markings be different colors. There's still a limited palette we can use within that manual, but we'd like to be able to brand the routes by different colors and potentially even put, two circles side by side where two routes potentially follow the same alignment. We think that would be really helpful in terms of navigation. And then the additional element would be on the signs, making it something like we did with the Matt Tomasulo project for walkability, to say, hey, here's a decision point. If you turn right, you can go to these two destinations. If you go straight, you can go to this other one. And we can either mark the distance in minutes or we can mark it in miles. That's probably something that's open for discussion and maybe some public comment in the future. And that's it. I think I made it in under 10 minutes, Jonathan. I tried to talk fast.
It was great, Paul. Thank you. It's so exciting to hear about all the projects in the pipeline. Obviously never coming fast enough, but I'm glad to hear that we'll have a bunch of projects that are ready to be funded, so that once our funding improves, then we're ready to go. And
just so folks understand, I always tell people, if we could we would have done it already. One of the biggest barriers we have to doing things in a kind of nimble and quick manner at the city is really building trust with neighborhoods, with businesses. That's just a time-consuming process. It takes a long time to develop the trust, and it's very easy to do damage to it. One little thing can wreck a project. I think a recent example we had was the Moloch trash bins. We kind of missed one important stakeholder, and it ruined the whole project. So we're always trying, and Mary's laughing because she knows that's my text, and it always seems to happen at the best times. It really is an issue for us. A lot of what took time was going out. We went door to door, even during COVID, and made sure that we had something in the hands of every single business owner as much as we were able to. We sat down with the St. Paul's AME Church, with the church elders, and that, just setting up that meeting took a month and a half or more. It's not a fast process. And if we don't do it, we run the risk of having to turn around and tear a project out. And that's really, from the city standpoint, that's our worst possible outcome. So we do ask you to be patient. It does seem like, hey, can't you just go out there with a can of paint? And the answer is, well, we could, but that might not give us the outcome that we want. And end of sermon.
Thank you, Paul. We appreciate all the hard work that you put in. I know working within the city is oftentimes frustrating and slow, and you keep pushing forward to make Raleigh a better place for people on bikes and people walking, and just in general. So I think we all really appreciate that. So I guess moving on, we'll go over what Oaks and Spokes has done in this crazy year. So first, let's go over what we've done with advocacy. So I guess the first big, super exciting thing that Oaks and Spokes has been working on for a long time with the city is getting the separated bike lane on the ground for the downtown north-south Greenway connector is what it's called now, but it was originally the Harrington Street cycle track. I think we've been working on it since like 2016 or 2017. Cody put in a ton of effort to get a pop-up going. In 2019, we had a ton of volunteers come out, put down traffic cones and plants, and you can see on this left picture, we had it for a weekend, and we could all sort of imagine Raleigh with separated on-street bike facilities, as it had never been done before. And it was a great success. We had hundreds of people come out and fill out surveys about what they thought. And I think there's a lot of positivity there. So I think it built up momentum. So I know we're definitely thinking about in the future trying to do this. It also brought up a lot of potential issues. We ended up going not with a cycle track, but with one-way, like a one-way lane split between Harrington and West Street. So that went in the ground. I believe it started in October. And this is a picture I went out riding, and I think I caught the first day that they were installing the posts. This is on the first block, or maybe the second block. It could have been the second day, but if you haven't got and ride one of the couple that the city has gotten in this year, or last year, I guess, and it's great. It feels a lot nicer to have that physical separation. You get more room from the cars. There's less chance of a car being parked in your way. And so I just want to give a big shout out to the city to getting that done and all the work that Oaks and Spokes has done and the volunteers to get us this far. So Oaks and Spokes, with that pop-up, you could sort of see that we try and be a voice for people on bikes at city meetings. So we go to city council and we talk. We go to the Bicycle and Pedestrian Action Committee, which is a city commission that discusses projects that are in the city pipeline and city codes and everything, and try and take a more like people approach to them as opposed to just cars. Make sure that they work for people on bikes, people that are walking. We go to those meetings and we talk about what they're thinking about, try and influence it so that we think the city's better for bikes. And then we also go to individual projects. So one major project that the city's working on right now is a bus rapid transit system. So we've been going to those meetings to try and make sure that they're not just thinking about the bus rapid transit system, they're also thinking about how are people going to get to the stations? Is there a way for someone to travel along the corridor, not just in a car or the bus, but they could take a bike? So maybe they could bike to the station, or they could use that same corridor to get somewhere, since they're redeveloping the corridor, and that people can walk to the station safely. And then there are lots of other city road projects or greenway projects that we try and come in and give like a different viewpoint and sort of directly as someone that rides a bike and thinks about it daily, things that they might miss, like different ways that they could handle intersections so that cars slow down for bikes or can see bikes easier. Make sure there's enough space for bikes. We try and be a voice for that in the city. So one really great thing is that recently City Council dedicated $500,000 to bike infrastructure, which is really some of the first major dedicated funding for bike infrastructure in a while. As Paul said, they hadn't had a dedicated bike project in over 5 years. So this allowed the city to be able to install the separated bike lanes and have a funding source for that. where they don't have to go out and apply specifically for grants that are just for this, and it takes a lot of legwork to get that done, and very specific requirements, or have to wait for a capital project that's working in the same area. I think continued pushing by Oaks and Spokes to have a dedicated funding source for bicycle lanes is extremely important so that we can fill those gaps and take advantage of the capital projects when they happen to sort of get a bunch of bike infrastructure down, but make sure that we have the funding so that if there's a gap that's missing, we can go in and have a bike specific project for that gap. Because bike infrastructure is really only as good as the weakest part of your trip. So people can make detours to find safer routes, but if the only way to get from point A to point B has a half mile on a 5-lane highway with no shoulder, like it's not going to be a pleasant trip, even if the rest of it is on separated bike lanes. So it's important that we connect the network. Another thing that we've been pushing for a while and the city has been able to provide us is up-to-date bicycle crash data. We think that this is really important because it allows us to see where people are getting injured on bikes and what needs improvement. Before, this data was available, but it was at a very large time lag. But now it should be updated within a day or two. So we can see pretty much real time where is dangerous for people on bikes. So we can push for it to be improved there. Maybe there's a capital project going in the area and we can advocate based on the fact that lots of people ride bikes here and lots of people have been injured here. We really need to improve this area. Another thing is Oaks and Spokes believes that Black Lives Matter and that and racial equity, and we understand that as an organization we could do better. This year we've tried to improve our understanding of how we could do better as an organization. The entire board did bias training. We've held a racial equity book club so we can discuss our inherent biases and how people are discriminated against, both consciously and unconsciously, including in infrastructure planning, the history behind racist infrastructure planning, and how that still exists today. And then as a board, we've discussed how we can represent everybody in Raleigh better, both make our board more diverse, our volunteer base more diverse, and then the people that believe that we're representing them more diverse and that who we listen to more diverse. So we really also want to listen to the community. If anybody has any ideas about what Oaks and Spokes can do better, please reach out. Because we want to truly be the voice for everybody in Raleigh that rides a bike. We want the city to be a great place for everybody to live. And that's a big goal of ours. And we want to keep striving to represent that goal. Another major focus of our advocacy efforts is in greenway safety. Sadly, Chip was killed this year on the greenway. And we have talked with the city about different ways that we can improve greenway safety, including lighting in tunnels. We think that's a big issue that is a fairly easy fix and can do a lot for the safety and comfort of the greenways. We've also raised over $2,500 for a fund to be used for improving greenway safety. So we're looking on how to best utilize that to make the greenways safer for everybody. So if these advocacy efforts interest you, please come join us. We have advocacy meetings. They're normally once a month. I believe the first Tuesday of every month, but that's up to change. But check out our website, reach out to us. You can reach out at info@oaksandspokes.com if you're interested. And we'd love to have you. We talk about how we can improve advocacy, what actions we can take. And we love to listen to new ideas about how we can better advocate for people in the city of Raleigh. So it's been a crazy year, but we did have a couple of events. We did do a bike month, even though we weren't allowed to meet up. We hosted some webinars. We had rider inspiration blog posts, which were great. I think we had almost 30. They're still on the news section of our website, so you can read them and read about different people that ride around the city of Raleigh and get some inspiration. We had a GPS art competition where people would go ride around and use their GPS traces for their bike ride to make art and submit it. We had bike bingo. We had a self-guided mural tour, which is great, and it's still available on the website. So if you wanted to go out and check out some of the great murals in Raleigh, that's a great activity. And then we had a competitive bike month bracket where people would see how many miles they could ride in the month and do a bracket style tournament to see who would win. So it was just us trying to, bring a little brightness in May. We also did Cranksgiving. It's an annual activity for us, and we were sad that we couldn't do it as big as we normally do. But what we ended up doing is we partnered with the Raleigh Rescue Mission to have people drop off food that they would buy on their bike over a weekend. And people managed to donate over 700 pounds of food. And then Oaks and Spokes is doing a pound to dollar match for the first 500 pounds of food. So Oaks and Spokes matched $500 along with the 700 pounds of food that we donated to help people in need at the Raleigh Rescue Mission. So one quick bookkeeping note, Oaks and Spokes is changing our membership sign-up process and adding a couple more options. So right now, however you're signed up is fine, but we'll be reaching out at some point to let you know. We're going from wild apricot to Aplos, so it's just a different form that you'll need to fill out. But your current membership will last until the end without you having to do anything, until the end of when you had signed up for. And all the information for that is on our website. We've also added a couple other ways to become a member. We've added a recurring membership so that you can set up for monthly donations as opposed to a single time donation for the year. And then we've also added a free membership because if we want to represent everybody in Raleigh, we want everybody in Raleigh to be able to be a member of our organization. And then we also still have the one-time donation memberships for the year. And then we have a business membership. So go onto our website for more information about this. So I want to take a moment to say thank you to our outgoing board members. We actually have 7 outgoing board members this year. These people have given up their nights and weekends to make Raleigh a better place for people on bikes. Takes a lot of time and energy. So just a big shout out to Dan, Annie, Chris, Cody, Esley, Sarah, and me. Have all been on the board. This is the end of a 2-year term, so it's a lot of time and energy spent. So a big shout out to them, and greatly appreciate all the work they've done and hope they can relax a little bit after 2 years of hard work. So I guess coming up, we have to have people to replace them. So it's the board elections. So one thing to note is we're doing all the elections through email. There's you should have gotten an email. It went out at 7 p.m. With your ballot. That's valid until the end of January 20th. So January 20th at midnight. If for some reason we didn't have your most up-to-date email address, please reach out and ask for a ballot so you can vote on who will represent you in the city of Raleigh on the Oaks and Spokes board. So we have 5 open positions. We have the external coordinator, which is the president of Oaks and Spokes, the membership coordinator, which manages the membership and then runs this party. We have the advocacy coordinator, who leads the charge for advocating for people on bikes in Raleigh. And the administrative coordinator keeps the board organized, takes minutes at the board meetings, and then at large which is a bit more flexible of a role. They have the ability to sort of dictate what they want to work on. And then, of course, all the board positions work on day-to-day things to make Raleigh a better place for people on bikes and to improve the organization. So we're going to give each of the candidates a couple minutes to speak. So first up is Seth. Seth is sadly not able to join us tonight, but he did send a video. So let me make sure that I can share the sound.
Good evening. My name is Seth Palmer, and I am proud to put my name forth for consideration
Can you all hear?
for the Oaks and Spokes Board of Directors. I'm applying for either the role of advocacy coordinator or an at-large board member.
Are y'all able to
I am
hear the
sorry
video?
that
Yep.
Good evening. My name is
Awesome.
Seth Palmer, and
Or
I
did
am
it
proud to
restart?
put my name forth for consideration for the Oaks and Spokes Board of Directors. I'm applying for either the role of advocacy coordinator or an at-large board member. I am sorry that I am not able to join you for tonight's membership meeting, but I wanted to give you a quick look at who I am and why I'm interested in joining the board. I am a native North Carolinian, born and raised in Wilmington. I came to Raleigh in 2004 to attend NC State and truly never left. My professional career has been rooted in advocacy and providing organizations with the tools they need to be successful in the political or policy arena, regardless of their size. I have done everything from writing a 150-page report on the value of intermodal logistics to the state, to lobby on behalf of transformative legislation, lead a campaign that generated more than 7,000 emails to a single inbox, and much more. Access is at the core of who we are and what we should be about, and access to mobility is fundamental. The Triangle has made so much progress in the areas of mobility, especially for bikes, but we are still far away from where we should be as a community. It is vital that the voice that Oaks and Spokes has built over the past 8 years grow and expand. Together we can do this, and I hope you give me the opportunity to serve the organization and help. Thank you.
So thank you, Seth. Let me just stop sharing my computer sound. Up next is Nick Neptune. He's running for the president of Oaks and Spokes, so the external coordinator. Take it away, Nick.
Good evening. Thank you, Jonathan. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. Well, to our current and former Oaks and Spokes board members, friends, and members of Oaks and Spokes, and our newly appointed interim executive director, Mary Sell, I'd like to say thank you for the encouragement leading up to this evening to put my name and work forward for consideration as your next external coordinator. You know, I carry a deep and enduring gratitude for the freedom, community, and opportunity afforded me over my 35 years as a cyclist to work with the new executive director, current and future board members, and the robust network of volunteers, friends, and champions of Oaks and Spokes in growing and expanding our membership, building on our history of advocacy around cycling infrastructure and policy, and ultimately reaffirming our roots as a social organization, strengthening and celebrating our community and culture. All of this would be a joy to pursue together in the months and years ahead. It is my hope and belief that my last 15 years of work through education and finance, music and entertainment, art and design, and most recently in food and beverage, coupled with my service and relationships with the East Coast Greenway Alliance, the Wake Tech Foundation Board, and the City of Raleigh's Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Commission, may be of benefit to the future work of Oaks and Spokes. And quite frankly, if nothing else, it is a real privilege to simply be considered to serve in the role of the next external coordinator for the Oaks and Spokes Board. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. So up next, to get all this situated. we have Milo Bateman. He's running for membership coordinator.
Hello. Thank you guys all for inviting me here and having me here. I feel a little removed because I'm not a native North Carolina person. I'm a DC guy, but I have spent a long time doing active transportation. I spent 12 years at Rails to Trails Conservancy in DC, so I'm very in tune with a lot of the things that are going on. Give me 1 second. Yes, 1 second, please. I'm sorry. I got a 4-year-old behind me. But I've spent a long time doing this stuff. I was the manager of the membership operations at Rails to Trails for a very long time. I'm also a content creator. I'm on the cover of their Pennsylvania guidebook here. That's my picture. I'm all throughout. I've been published in multiple states. I've done GIS and GPS mapping in many places around the country, many states, many small towns. And I really understand the importance of infrastructure and networks. Obviously, I come from a Trails background, but that feeds into everything that we're talking about here as far as infrastructure goes. And you know, I realize you guys are very bike centric, but I guess we used to always talk about it as active transportation because whether you're on a bike or whatever you are traveling around, everyone's a pedestrian at some point, and that's really the infrastructure that you're working towards. So I appreciate you guys considering me for this role. Cody reached out to me last year and I just didn't have the time, and I'm really glad that I did have the time this year. And I would love to serve you guys, love to help out. Like I said before, I'm a huge content creator. I do photography. I do a lot of things on social media. And I'm trying to get my hands dirty as much as I can around here, around Raleigh, and help you guys out, particularly with membership. I see this sort of thing growing. I understand how important this is for communities, whether, people look at it that way or not. They're out there walking around the sidewalks and the trails and everything. And so this is important infrastructure as far as transportation goes, particularly with a community like this, where we have so many people in so many suburbs right around the same area that almost connect. And seeing Paul's maps, it's great to look at that stuff because you start to see where connections can be made and where some places need more attention than others. And I also appreciate you guys, or Jonathan, bringing up the diversity, because that's one thing we did spend a lot of time on at Rails to Trails, is making sure that underserved communities are a part of those networks, and making sure that those sort of things are the connections we're making, as far as getting everybody to have access to the same kind of infrastructure that everyone wants. So thank you again, and I really hope you consider me for helping you guys out.
Thank you, Milo. So up next is I am running for the at-large position. So I guess a bit about me. I've been working with Oaks and Spokes for about 3 years. So the first year I was a volunteer and just really excited and figuring out what it was. And then I ran for the membership position. I've been membership coordinator for the past 2 years. I've been passionate about making Raleigh a better place for people on bikes for the whole time. And just, I want to keep doing that. I think that my experience with the organization, we have a lot of board turnover this year. We'll only have 2 positions that remain on the board that aren't up for election. So I think with my experience, I'll be able to help the new board, which I'm super excited to work with. Both know how the organization has worked in the past, but work to improve it with the new executive director. Mary, and then new, fresh ideas. So to make the organization better, but not forget how we've operated in the past and have to reinvent things if we don't need to. I also have a deep technical knowledge of how Oaks and Spokes has functioned and hope to be able to continue to support Oaks and Spokes so that how technology is working, whether it's email or video calls or whatever it takes to make the organization run, doesn't get in the way. I've also worked on a bike map for the city of Raleigh and managing our website. So continue that work. So I hope you consider me for the at-large position. Thank you. So up next, we have Jennifer. She's running for membership, administrative, and at-large.
Yeah, you can just put me wherever. Hi, everybody. I'm Jennifer Suarez, and I first ran into Oaks and Spokes, I don't know, a few years ago. I used to host a podcast called Inbound Raleigh, which was about transit and transportation in our city. And I started that to get a conversation going. And I gave it up last January, interesting timing, right before the pandemic hit, not knowing. But thinking to myself, oh, it'd be great to step away from the podcast so that I could volunteer and become more active in something like Oaks and Spokes or another organization. So here I am, excited to be putting my name in the hat. I live and work in downtown Raleigh. I feel like I've seen a lot of these names many times and run into you all. My husband and I are big in community and downtown stuff. So we, before the pandemic, would host meetups, and we're hoping to bring those back later this year. Fingers crossed, just to talk about downtown and development and all that stuff. And I do tend to walk more than I bike, but I'm really excited to help serve the board however I can.
Thank you, Jennifer. So up next, we have Anne, who's running for advocacy and at-large.
Yes, it's me. How are you? Okay. So, I don't know. I wasn't really like thinking I was going to do this big old speech, but I want to say one thing. I moved from Seattle to Charlotte to Raleigh to Charlotte to Raleigh, and I've lived lots of places. And Raleigh is one of the best biking cities I've ever lived in. And I've lived in Boulder, and I've lived in DC, and I've lived in Seattle. And so whatever this organization's done, or whatever the city's done, thank you, Paul, it's actually amazing. And I tell all my friends from Charlotte, you need to get your butt over here and just ride trail. My background is, I'm in corporate America, but I've been on lots of boards, and I've done lots of fundraising. So, if we want more permanent people, we want more full-time executive directors. One of my assets is to actually help with fundraising. And I think that I'm also leadership Seattle. It's called Leadership Tomorrow, which is a 9-month program to teach corporate people how to work and use their leadership skills in nonprofits. Because as you all know, I'll just say, Cody, everybody that's already leaving the board, leading volunteers is significantly different than leading people that get paid. Okay. And so I do have skills in that, to motivate people to work on fundraising or to work on activities. So that's it. And also lots of fun, and I ride my bike. I'm really, really upset. I only rode my bike on average 30 miles a week last year, usually about 60 or 70, but it's okay. It was COVID. So that's it. Oh, wait. I am very active in North Carolina, Cycle North Carolina, Charlotte, Sustain Charlotte, and Charlotte area cycling. So if we wanted to do activities with other people in North Carolina, I probably would have the ability to do some of those things. It's okay. It'll be fun. That's it. I'm done. I'm done. I'm done. Turn it off.
Awesome. Thank you.
Oops. Oh, I turned my video off. Let me-
Just share my screen again. So those are all the candidates. So check your email for your ballot. The way that it works is it's ranked choice voting. So for every position, you'll have a chance to rank every person that's running for the position, or to abstain if for some reason you didn't want to vote for someone. But you are allowed to, each election is separate, so don't feel like if you voted for someone in one election, that should influence your vote for them in another election at all. And you can vote for them for multiple roles. So please reach out to info@oaksandspokes.com if you don't see it, or if you have any questions, or if you have any issues. We want to make sure that this is as seamless as possible. This is our first time running a virtual membership party, first time doing email ballots. So we're working through it, and we appreciate your patience if there are any issues. So thanks everybody for making this possible, for making it a great city, a great community. And we want to keep in touch, so reach out. It's also info@oaksandspokes.com if you want to get in contact with us, if you have any ideas, and we'd love your help. You can also go to oaksandspokes.com/get-involved. And that has a bunch of information on how you can help out the community, whether it's joining the advocacy committee or signing up to volunteer more actively, or having an idea and seeing if Oaks and Spokes can help. So we would love your help. So
Hey, Jonathan, real quick, I just I saw the questions that came in during my thing in the chat, and it looks like most of I had two that I wanted to touch on real quick. If you've got 30 seconds.
yeah, go ahead.
One was the Avon Ferry Tunnel. That's really between NC State and NC DOT, and the city is just kind of along for the ride. NC State really wants to make that happen sooner rather than later. So just stay tuned. It's not dead and it's still moving, but I don't know the status of that one. The other one was the bike lane maintenance. That's probably a conversation to be had offline with adult beverages, because that's a really complicated problem here at the city. But we are making some progress. We are actually meeting with a rep from a place that sells street sweepers specific for bike lanes in early February. And they're going to come up and do a demo for not just me, but all of the actual operations staff. So we are starting to chip away at that. So don't expect anything miracle to happen overnight. We know there's leaves. Just so folks know, our interim solution was to use the big leaf vacuum trucks. It turns out 2 of the 4 trucks in the city were down for maintenance, and the maintenance shop is running at partial capacity because of COVID distancing restrictions. So it was kind of a perfect storm. There were going to be leaves in the bike lane for a little while. We know it's an issue. We're doing our best. But again, everything is a little bit slow, but we're chipping away. And I think all the other questions got answered. If I'm mistaken, just send me a message or let me know.
Will do. Thank you, Paul. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that tunnel under to Avon Ferry from NC State. I know I could have used that 10 years ago, or 8 years ago now, I guess, when I was in school there. So I just wanted to give another big shout out to both our candidates for being willing to give up their time and energy to make Raleigh a better place, and put themselves out there, as well as our board members that are leaving. Thanks again for all your hard effort. So we pretty much hit right where we were shooting for, ending at 8:30, but we have time for questions and answers at the end if people want to stay around. We got a bunch of board members on the call.
I just want to say thank you, Jonathan. You did great today. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. I
Ditto on
appreciate it.
that. Great job. Great job, everybody.
So just, you can either come off mute and ask a question or post it in chat, and we'll be happy to answer.
will you repeat again when we're going to hear the results of the election?
Yes. So you are able to vote up until the midnight on the 20th. So we will hopefully have the results out sometime on the 21st of January.
This question is for Paul. To the extent you could answer this, of course, I'm just wondering, you know, due to COVID, I think pretty safe to say the Raleigh city budget and the Wake County budget are going to take a pretty big hit, and in the next year's planning and stuff. And I'm just wondering how vulnerable you see the work around bike infrastructure, pedestrian infrastructure. It seems like it would be something that's, you know, might be one of the first things to go with really this unprecedented situation we're in.
Yeah, luckily, I think a lot of our revenue is going to be spoken for, at least in terms of the roughly $1 million that we've got, provided we can get it spent. I'm a little more worried about some of our other programs. We have a microgap sidewalk program that has been a real challenge for us, even though we have money. First, we ran into problems getting contractors willing to do small jobs. They don't want to come and pour 75 feet of sidewalk when they could be in Apex pouring concrete for a new subdivision for 3 or 4 weeks. From a money standpoint, it didn't make sense for them. And then on top of that, we had been doing a lot of these fixes under the guise of maintenance, saying that it was just, you know, a really big pothole, right? Stormwater came back and said, no, you can't do that. That violates state law. So any sidewalk that's over about 35 feet with our standard width is going to trigger full stormwater review and mitigation. So this thing that seems like it should be so simple, hey, I've got 75 feet of sidewalk gap on one side of my house. Can the city come fill that in? The answer is, well, sure we could, and it's going to take us 5 years because I've got to find the time to do all these small projects. It's a lot easier to actually build $1 million worth of sidewalk in one big run on a major road than it is to build 75 feet here and there all over the city. That's the kind of money that I actually think would be more vulnerable. But some of these bigger programs, invisible programs, I think will be relatively safe. The manager's office has done a really good job seeing this coming and being conservative and budgeting accordingly. I think we're going to be in pretty good shape. There are some other programs that are very revenue driven, like the Performing Arts Center, that were really dependent upon receipts. I think they're a little more worried than we are on the infrastructure side. And that's conjecture on my part. I don't work for the manager. I just kind of know what I know about budgets, having worked in this field for a while.
Thank you. I appreciate the answer.
Hi, everyone.
Hey, Paul,
I've got a question for you regarding bike lanes and maintenance and all that good stuff. The protected north-south connector, it does have its drawbacks in the surface of the bike lane not being level, and there's also water graves that are there and tree branches that hang over it. Is the city done, or is there plans to improve the surface of the bike lanes in that protected bike lane?
There are no plans to change the pavement. In fact, if we were going to have done it, we probably would have done it before we put down paint. The storm drains are just, it's a reality that we have to work around. I am talking to the designers about potentially going back and putting white boxes around them if we didn't do that on the first pass. The biggest part of phase 2 that we're likely to touch is actually the pedestrian part. We're working to try and get some pedestrian ramp improvements in the section that we finished. But in terms of the actual bike lane part, that's pretty much done with a few small exceptions where there was some construction and some minor things we might go back and tweak. An example of that was where we had to move the loading zone down at the Dillon South on Harrington Street.
Does the city recognize that the surface is uneven and creates a challenge for bicycle riders?
We said that, that's what we had to work with. If there's a specific area, let us know. Right now, my bigger worry is Blunt Person. I don't know if folks have been up on the north end, but the utility company that did the manhole grates for the telecom did not do a very good job getting it up to the level of the street. And there are some of those that are really quite deep.
Right.
So that one is on my radar because we're having some issues with that one. But if there's some specific places on the new facility, let us know. Part of that is just being in downtown. There's only so much you can do. And again, my budget's pretty small.
Sure.
That project clocked, I don't know what the final tally will be, but the cost estimate was between $80,000 and $120,000. So that's roughly a tenth of the budget to do those 6 blocks.
Do you have a recommendation on where we could focus our comments to the city to bring it to their attention more instead of channeling it to you, who we know is already aware of it? Is there a way that we can bolster our presence and get a little squeakier?
I'm hesitant because I already know it'll fall back into my lap and I know what capacity I've got. But you can always talk to your council member.
Okay.
If there's a specific issue. And there may be some things like the trees actually would go to urban forestry. If you contact urban forestry, they may be able to go out and deal with it instead of me trying to figure out who it goes to in urban forestry and looping it through. You can go directly to the source.
Okay.
But again, if you've got a very specific, targeted thing, send that my way and I'll see what I can do.
Okay. And also include communicating with your city council member.
Yeah,
Getting it on their radar, right?
You always have a right to talk to your council member.
Okay, thanks.
Except me, I live in Cary.
Hey, what's up with that? B doesn't live in Raleigh either.
Well, we like to have a degree of separation. It allows for better neutrality. Full disclosure, though, I am on the town of Cary's appointed Greenway Committee, and since they don't have a BPAC, I personally try to watch out for the connectivity issues. And so far, I'm pretty happy with what we've done. And I think that we'll start to see some improvements along the border, not necessarily because of me, but just because of other things that are happening with construction and projects around the region. One to note that isn't one of my projects, but it's Parks and Rec, is a side path that's in the works that was part of the Parks Bond a couple years ago that will come from the Umstead East entrance down Trenton Road to the interstate. Once it gets there, we don't know how we'll deal with the bridge. That's an NCDOT question, but it does put it in the lap for the town of Cary. Now that Raleigh's built our half, town of Cary will be more interested in trying to connect.
If everyone gives me permission to ask one more question to Paul, it's not on a new topic, but I'm curious about feedback from the Open Street project that was launched during COVID-19. I haven't heard a whole lot about it. It seemed to just kind of disappear. Is my impression right, or did you hear?
Oh no, it's alive and well. In fact, it was the topic of discussion for the planning committee of the BPAC Monday night. And we got some great ideas from them. We're going to bring those back to staff and sort of look through what's possible and what's not. A really broad description of what came out was last time we used some very quick and dirty criteria to try and find some candidate streets. We deployed as quickly as we could and we learned some things. Mm-hmm. We brought that feedback to the BPAC, and one of the things they said was, you tried to pick streets that all had the same criteria. Since you're trying to learn, why don't you pick streets that are completely different and see what works and what doesn't? So that's one potential thing we might think about going forward. We've also met with Parks and Recreation to talk about their parks access. And rather than citing it from the standpoint of streets, citing it from the standpoint of parks, and adding that in as one of our criteria to say, where is an underserved place that needs open space?
Right. So that's great. That's a great update. I'm glad I asked. Thanks. I have more questions. I could keep going.
Yeah. And For folks who weren't aware of what the Open Street program was, it's where we did temporary semi-shutdowns of some streets. We did 5 of them around the city. I can maybe remember them off the top of my head. Fiesta Way. I can never remember the one that was up near Crabtree, but it's north of Crabtree Valley going up toward Millbrook. Morning Dove Drive, which is also North Raleigh. Pine View, which is in Avent West, and Rose Lane, which was in Southeast Raleigh, were the 5 that were chosen. And they were deployed April or May, and we just pulled the barricades out a week ago.
Paul, what'd you learn? I'm curious.
It was a very mixed bag. It was really split about 50-50 in terms of people thinking it was good and people thinking it was a waste of money or not doing what it was intended to do. So we're trying to say, how can we get feedback that's more positive? How can we take that positive feedback and make the installations get more positive feedback? There's always going to be folks who are car centric that just see it as a waste of time and money. That's not really our audience. We're really looking to try and get at some, folks who want to use the facility. One of the most interesting comments that I think we got was folks saying, why are you doing this? You're in the middle of a pandemic and you're going to be bringing people into my neighborhood like it's a park. Don't do that. And that was a legitimate concern. It's one of the reasons why it wasn't widely broadcast was we didn't want to necessarily encourage that, but we wanted to make sure we at least had a test bed to try out. From a staff perspective, it seemed like a big lift. The coordination we had to do with things like trash and fire to make sure their trucks could still get in there, with mail to make sure we wouldn't disrupt mail delivery. It looked really simple. Hey, we put some barricades out and did a good thing. It was a lot more behind the scenes work to make that happen. And the staff were incredible because I really wasn't even the point person. It was operations folks that really did the bulk of the work.
Did they see an increase in active mobility on those streets, and did they interview the residents?
We actually sent surveys out to all of the adjacent residents, and we put it out there for anybody who used the street to also comment. If you want to take a look at that, it was in the BPAC agenda 2 months ago, I think in November. There was an item, and so the full survey and the results are in the BPAC agenda if you want to go back and look in the archives. We didn't really measure how much people were using it because we didn't have a way to do that, but we did do a speed study and a volume study. And we found that volumes decreased a little bit, about 6% overall, but that speeds actually increased, which was not what we intended. So one of the other recommendations that the BPAC committee said was maybe you do some more things between the barricades as traffic calming. It was an interesting experience, and I was kind of hoping to not have extra work, but Michael Moore told us about 2 weeks ago that we will be deploying that again. We spent a lot of money to get to this point, and we're going to reuse that equipment.
Oh, good. Can I put Fairview Road on the wish list?
You can, if it's got a transit route. It generally was not. It was taken out of consideration because just dealing with the buses was very difficult.
No transit route on Fairview Road. Is
Okay.
it do we go to the website to do that? The RaleighNC.gov?
I'm not sure, but yeah, or just send me an email. I'm
Okay.
looking for candidates.
Any updates on is it Hardy Lane or Hardy?
On Hardimont.
Yeah, Hardimont.
Yeah. City Council went ahead and passed the change in the parking. And we are planning to go back this summer during the paving and striping season in the summer and put in at least the bike lane markings. If we've got the budget and are able, we may try to make it a buffered bike lane for the entirety of the facility.
Nice. And residents were on the whole,
Oh my God.
acceptable?
It was very mixed.
Can I ask a question about if Paul, if you happen to know about the progress on the sections of the Greenway that are closed near the downtown area?
Yeah, which ones?
all the areas that are routinely closed, like along Crabtree Creek.
Okay, Crabtree in particular, there are a number of different projects, and they're all slightly different. Structure 106 was a failure of the structure due to the scouring of Crabtree Creek. That's funded. It's just about ready to bid. We are actually going to do our first in-street multi-use path on Ratchford Drive by the old car dealer. I saw in the chat we were talking about that. That is moving forward. If it's not been bid already, it's nearly ready to bid, and hopefully we'll start construction this summer. Again, Parks and Rec is a different department, but David Bender, who I work with, does a good job keeping me in the loop there. There was another project with a retaining wall that was over near North Hills Drive that is wrapping up if it's not done already. The bigger one, though, right in the middle, is a public utilities project, and I do not know the timeline on that.
That's over by Anderson Avenue.
That
Between Anderson and Lassiter Mill, that's been closed for maybe a year.
that sounds right. Yeah, it's kind of over near, is it Rothglebe Park-ish, west of there, if I remember. But yeah, it's always, I always just say it's the one that's in the middle. There's one closure on either end and a big one in the middle. So the downside is yeah, it's still closed. The upside is Public Utilities is going to build it back to current standard, and it'll be on their dime. It won't come out of Parks and Rec budget.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, I've got a question for John with Raleigh Kickstand, if he's still on.
It doesn't look like he's still on, but I can get in contact with him or answer.
Yeah, I guess I was just wondering how we could get involved with like learning how to repair bikes. Kind of interested in the Adopt a Bike program, but I heard him say that teaching was one of his tenets, and I didn't really know how to get involved with that.
Yeah, so you can come out to the monthly repair sessions. I guess right now it probably would be a bit more difficult because of COVID restrictions, but normally, like, there would be people fixing bikes, and you could like sort of like help one of them and do things that you knew how to do, and then watch them do things that you didn't know how to do and have them help you with that.
Cool, thanks.
So if you reach out to, I think it's Raleigh Community Kickstand at gmail.com. If you go on the Oaks and Spokes website or raleighcommunitykickstand.com, there's a contact for them and you could reach out.
Awesome, thanks.
Does anybody else have any questions?
I had one brief question that I was curious about. As far as like if we're out and about on greenways, etc., and there's a particular trouble spot or whatnot, I know there's, in some cases it's pretty obvious, you know, you contact your city council member, but if it's going through areas like NC State campus, etc., I'm wondering where to start researching as far as who to contact in those instances if there's something hazardous. Like if, I'm not sure if like Paul can answer that. I know he's already taken a lot of questions on that matter, but it was one of those gray areas.
Yeah, I saw that come up in the chat, and the answer is it depends. NC State actually maintains the greenways on their own campus, so we don't do that. And in fact, they are usually a lot quicker to respond than the city can be. They're just a little more nimble. They have more control, a little, being a state agency, their permitting bar is a little lower than ours at the city in terms of what they have to do. So if it's on NC State campus, then it would be the NC State Transportation Department. And if you want to email me, I can forward it to them. We've done that in the past. So like the entire Greenway side path along Centennial, that's the other side. The sidewalk is city. The side path side is NC State, and they maintain that. All of Walnut Creek Greenway going through campus and all of Rocky Branch Greenway through campus belong to them, and they take care of it.
Thanks. Yeah, I knew it was going to be one of those weird quasi things, probably.
Yeah, if it's that puddle that forms down at the dead end of Broadwell Drive, right before you get to Avon Ferry, there's also a greenway project there that will punch through from Trailwood to the existing trail, so you no longer have to go out onto Avon Ferry and use the sidewalk. And I think that has actually been bid and let.
Oh, okay.
So that may help with the drainage issue at that spot, because I know where that one is.
Yeah, there's a couple.
And as someone who likes to ride in the winter, it's actually an ice
Yeah,
hazard.
that was what I was worried about. Like somebody's going to come skating through there or other parts of Greenway, and there's cyclists and then there's experienced cyclists, and they're going to go around that and hit it and then freestyle floor skate. Thanks, Paul.
Paul, if you can stand another question, I would like to ask, are you involved at all, or what is the mechanism for getting involved in specifically how bike infrastructure will be developed within Dix?
So Dix Park is its own thing, and Kate Pierce in Parks and Rec is sort of the czar of all things Dorothea Dix. And she's a great partner, but she really is the person overseeing everything there. Much of that master planning process has already happened. Right now, the focus is on two different things that touch the transportation side. One is the Dix Edge and the Lake Wheeler side of Dix. That's going to be one of the first areas to develop, and they're going to be punching through a new connection. They're also working with the farmers market, who's building a new driveway. So expect to see some changes on Lake Wheeler Road in that section, really from the top of the hill down to the interstate. There's 3 or 4 projects from a couple of different city and state agencies all happening in there in the next 2 to 3 years. The other part of that is not on Dorothea Dix itself, but it's a connector to connect Dorothea Dix to Chavis Park. We actually got an 8 to 80s grant from AARP, and Kate is the lead on that right now. We don't know what form that will take, but we're trying to do sort of a quick build tactical urbanist project on Lenore Street is the current thinking.
Paul, can I offer a follow-up on your comment and response?
Always, Nick.
Well, I was just going to say, I happen to be involved with the Dix Park Community Committee. And if I heard the question correctly, as far as how can one get involved with the sort of future build out of the infrastructure with Dix Park, although there is that master plan that much of this is sort of being tied back to, the actual like build out and the details of how it's all going to be executed, that's still certainly, you know, to a degree a matter of conversation. The city, the Conservancy, and the landscape architect, Michael Van Valkenburg and Associates, they're still actively seeking public input. And I just dropped a link in the chat, if you can pull it up, for the next public meeting, which will be virtual, happening on Tuesday, January 19th. That may be an opportunity to kind of get an update on where we are with the very first phase of the build out for Dix Park, which is the plaza and play space, which, as I would love to share with you here, I've seen some of the initial sort of renderings for phase 1, and there's lots of infrastructure there for our cycling community, and I was certainly glad to see it. But to the caller with the question, I think it may have come from Allison, if I'm not mistaken. I would love to see you, if you're able to call into the public meeting, and then maybe even find ways to get further involved from there. Certainly Kate Pierce is a phenomenal resource, being the supervisor on behalf of the city, you know, again, overseeing the development and the growth of Dix. But you know, frankly, if it was from Allison, you know, we need as many people involved in the conversation around the growth and development of Dix Park. It's a huge, huge endeavor for the city. And frankly, any conversation about the park is a conversation about the future of this city. So I would love to see you there. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. I think I can join on the 19th.
And Sarah Ellis, I think, has dropped off, but she is also heading up with the planning department a Dix Edge study, looking at the neighborhoods adjacent to Dix Park and what their needs might be. So if you have an interest in that, just contact Sarah.
I'd like to just add about Dix Park. I was incredible when I heard the news that the Nights of Lights event at Dix Park, when they added the bicycle hour, sold out inside an hour. 400 tickets, and I swear, I would have bet on it that there was a glitch in the system, because there was no support for this when I was inquisitive back in October, and I didn't see any promotion for it. So it wasn't until Mary said, no, it's real. And then I couldn't get any tickets because I went 6 hours after it was opened. And then I got lucky and I got 2 tickets from Oaks and Spokes. So I was like, this is a miracle. So I saw firsthand that it was very real. There were all sorts of bicycle riders that rode their bikes to Dix Park from all areas, and it was uber cold, and it was exhilarating and breathtaking to see that response, more so than the event itself. So yeah, thank you, Nick, for giving that link for the upcoming event. I'll be there.
I hope to see you there, Mary Jo, at least online.
Yeah, online.
Well, thank you, everybody. It's 9 o'clock. I want to make sure that everybody has time to decompress before it gets too late. So thanks, everybody, for coming out. I think it was a great event, so I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Thanks for your hard work, Jonathan. Thanks,
It was
everybody.
great, everybody. Nice to see
Okay,
you
thanks,
guys.
everyone.
Have a great
Good seeing
night.
you all. All right, you too.
Thank you.
Good night. Thank
Take
you.
care. Bye, y'all.
Thank
Good night.